Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your time. I'm Chris Schmidt. I'm the chair of the board of the Ohio City Incorporated organization. We appreciate you all coming out on a Tuesday evening. There's plenty of food in the back. If you haven't had your fill, please go back and join us, our friends from Proof. And Dave's going to come up here later, introduce the crew, and talk more about their plan for the neighborhood. So we have these meetings as a great central point for us to hear updates about things that impact all of us. And so beyond the individual scope of maybe a block or maybe a block club or even part of the neighborhood, we talk about things here that affect everybody. That includes things like restaurants and business openings. That includes things like our co-urbanized platform that we're going to talk about some tonight, Near West Land Trust, and so on and so forth. So please stick around. We'll be done by 7 o'clock if we have anything to do with it. And with that, there's going to be rules for each of the discussions. If we have questions, we just ask you to be respectful. We'll cover that when we get to the end of presentations. And with that, I will turn it over to Katie Baumbach, who will have some updates on some events going on.
I'm short, so there we go. Hi guys, so just a quick update on some events we have going on in the neighborhood. Some of these have been in the newsletter. If you don't get it, I recommend signing up. It's at the bottom of our website. But we have city stages. I think everyone knows about that. It's one of the most popular events in the neighborhood. That returns tomorrow, 7:30 p.m., corner of West 29th and Church. And they'll be back next Wednesday as well. We're super excited for some live world music, beer, support the small businesses in that neighborhood, and we're really excited about that. And then we've got the August 15th community meeting, and just a heads up, the school needs a space, so we're trying to figure out where we're going for that one. And it's going to depend a little bit on, we may have a very large, a very popular topic, so we may go to a larger space. So we're kind of hammering that out. So keep your eyes on social and the newsletter to kind of see where we end up for that. Saturday, August 19th, we're excited to do a community cleanup. We'll have dumpsters, and it'll be sponsored by LMM. With a little happy hour, like grilling situation afterwards. So super excited about that. And then Tuesday, August 29th at 2, we're hosting a community resource and job fair at Market Square Park. We're partnering with a bunch of service organizations within the city to bring resources, excuse me, and also have someone who can check over resumes. And then we're hoping to have some on-the-spot interviews, especially for neighborhood businesses. So if you work for a business or know anyone who is looking for staff, let us know. We can get you there for some on-site interviews. And then finally, we had been collecting data from the neighborhood on a neighborhood sale. So we laid it on the 16th. We'll have more information coming out. You'll be able to add your address if you want to participate to the map, or if you just want to shop, you can check out the map and see where people are participating. And we're also going to be encouraging businesses and organizations to kind of take part too. So keep an eye out for information about that. So a lot of big stuff coming up in the neighborhood. We're really excited about it. And that's all I got. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Nate Lal, who is here to talk to us about co-urbanize.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Nate Lal. I'm the neighborhood planning manager at Ohio City Incorporated. Going to be sharing some updates about co-urbanize tonight, and maybe introduce co-urbanize to some folks who aren't familiar. So first off, what is co-urbanize? Co-urbanize is a community engagement tool. It's a third-party software. It's used to collect feedback and provide a centralized place for finding information on projects happening in the neighborhood. We contract directly with co-urbanize for this service, and I think that you'll learn a little bit more about what co-urbanize is kind of used for. So we started using co-urbanize in 2018 during our economic development and retail strategy plan. We used it for our mobility study, which some of you might be familiar with, last year. And during the pandemic, we really had to figure out a way to get engagement on neighborhood projects. We couldn't meet in person. We couldn't do block clubs. We couldn't do community meetings like this one. So we kind of needed to figure out how to pivot and still collect that valuable feedback, because development was ongoing, but again, we couldn't do community meetings. It wasn't safe. So we started using Corbinize as a development engagement, and we use it to, some of the things that are interesting about Corbinize and the way that we use it in Ohio City is we use it to provide an online outlet for community feedback and questions. We use it to provide a clear and transparent record of meetings, presentations, and community sentiment on projects. We ask that any large-scale development or mixed-use development be hosted on Corbinize. However, this is entirely at the developer's discretion. There's no legal mandate from the city that says a developer needs to do community engagement on a project. But if somebody chooses not to do community engagement, we typically will show up to all the meetings and try to cause hell for them. So that's a nice way of saying that we will make it known if you don't engage with the community on development projects. This is also part of our community engagement plan, which we've worked on with resident group leaders for the past few years in a process that we are still fine-tuning. We'll be the first to admit that it's not a perfect process, and it's not a replacement for your block clubs. It's not a replacement for these in-person community meetings, but it is an additional engagement tool that we use in the neighborhood to try to get feedback from folks who may not be able to go to a block club, or they may be working, or they may not know about the block club, but hey, they see this yard sign or they see this website and they can tune in and figure out what's going on in the neighborhood. So since we started using Corbinize more regularly during the pandemic, we've had over 125,000 page views total. We've had over 1,600 followers on projects total. We've had almost 3,000 comments left across, I think, about 15 or 16 projects. And why is this important? These are just numbers, right? I think it shows that it helps us understand how the community is reacting to different projects, and informs the feedback that we're able to give to developers and the city. And the number of viewers and commenters indicates it has been broadly used in the community. It can also let us know the levels of engagement on a project and if we need to do further engagement if the numbers are low. So here you'll see some charts. So community sentiment is a huge, it's an interesting thing that we are able to generate from Corbinize directly. So you'll see here there's positive, neutral, and negative sentiment. And it's interesting because there's a lot of neutral sentiment, a lot of positive sentiment, and there's some negative sentiment on certain projects. But I think overall you'll see that there's been less opposition to development and more questions or concerns that can be addressed within the community within each project. So I think this shows that the community is not opposed to development. They just have questions and concerns, which is a rational thing to do, right? So we get the question all the time, what is OCI's role in community development? What is OCI's role in the development process for the city of Cleveland? And I'm here to kind of say that our role is to get that community feedback and make community feedback accessible. It's also to make information transparent. We're not here to take a stance for or against a project. We're here to articulate the concerns that the community's expressed. We're here to shine light on the positive things that the community's expressed. We really are a neutral party. We do our best to be a neutral party, I'll say. Again, we take no formal stance with City of Cleveland boards and commissions on development projects. And again, I think this is really important to stress that as part of our JEDI statement, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, one of our goals there is to eliminate barriers to information and reduce or improve access to information. And this is just another tool to do that. So if you visited Corbinize recently, you might have seen some changes to the pages. And this is just an example with Irishtown Bend. Corbinize is launching their Corbinize 2.0 product. It's essentially just an upgraded version of their existing platform. No major changes on the front end. I know we've got some questions and comments of folks who are concerned that we're moving away from Corbinize. We are not moving away from Corbinize. This will just essentially, it's a new layout is all it is. So there's a lot of interesting tools on the back end that we can use to make information more accessible. But overall, I think the information you find on Corbinize will not change from what it's been existing. And so with that, I would love to hear your feedback. The ohcfeedback.com link will take you to all of our ongoing current or past projects in the neighborhood. Scanning the QR code there will take you to a short five-question survey that we've developed. There's also copies of the flyer in the back that has a link, as well as the QR code if you'd rather scan that or type in the link. It's a very quick survey. Again, we're just here to figure out how we can best use Corbinize and to hear what people like and don't like about it. Additionally, I'll be in the back of the room for the rest of the meeting, so if you want to grab me and say, give me your feedback as well. You can also email me, or you can call me on my work phone. So with that, if anybody has questions, I think Chris is gonna kind of meander around the room. Okay. Everybody got the QR code if they want it? I see some people still doing it, so give them a second here.
If you do have questions, raise your hand and I'll come to you.
Hi. So I was curious about the feedback that you get on projects. How is negative feedback used when you're looking at a development project?
So I think what we try to do is we have our staff look at all of the comments and try to find themes that are consistent. A lot of these pages have over 200 comments, and that's a good thing because it shows a high level of engagement, but it can be difficult if you don't start to pull some themes through there. So really, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, we just try to figure out, okay, what are the majority of people on Corbinize saying? What have we heard at community meetings or block clubs? And we try to stress that to developers and to the city.
Nate, can you talk a little bit about how the platform sorts that positive and negative and neutral?
Absolutely. So back on my slide here. So again, you'll see the positive, negative, and neutral. And what Corbinize does is they are able to analyze key phrases and terms that people leave in the comments. So if you say, I'm opposed to this project, that's going to fall into negative sentiment. If you say, I love this, or maybe this could be better, it might fall into neutral or positive.
Just for the staff, I love to put in like, I hate how much I love this project, just to confuse as many people as possible. Other questions on this?
Sour.
My name is Diana Howard. I am a community activist for Lakeview Terrence, also CMHA commissioner, and y'all guys know the bug. But my question is, will you take the feedback and use them as surveys also?
So the question was, do we take the feedback and create surveys on the page itself?
Yes.
Yes, so that's one of the things we do, and I didn't touch on that, is we're able to generate questions that are specific to the project, and that's how we get the feedback. So we could have a question that says, do you support this type of use in this project? Do you think this is has too little parking or too much parking, or would you like to see streetscape improvements? And there are questions that we have where it's like a poll essentially, and people can say yes or no, or whatever's relevant to the comments. So yeah, we use surveys on the site itself, yes.
Nate, I'll ask another follow-up. Can you talk about how we present this back to the appropriate board or commission with the city? How does this feedback get back to them?
Absolutely. So if you see here, I have an example pulled from the Clinton Townhomes project. Corbinize is able to generate a really quick and easy report to read that's really digestible. It again shows the neutral, positive, and negative sentiment, and then it shows a list of all of the comments that have been left on each question. So it's a full kind of transcription of what's occurred on Corbinize.
Any final questions on this? Nope.
I know you said that Ohio City Inc. is neutral and tries to be neutral in this whole process. Would you say that the feedback that you get kind of in a range of projects impacts how Ohio City thinks about development in general, or does works with developers in terms of how you think about the neighborhood, and how does Co-Urbanize and the feedback that you get on that and projects in general, how does that impact how Ohio City kind of goes forward in working with developers or thinking about the neighborhood and development?
That's a great question. So I would say yes, that does inform exactly when a project is brought to us. We're able to give our feedback based on our history of knowledge of people working, people that have been working in community development for 15 years, and they've seen so many different projects go on. So they kind of know what the neighborhood might have an appetite for and might not. I would say, just as an example, we've always consistently heard that people do not mind higher density on commercial corridors, but they would like side streets to be a little bit less dense, rather maybe with townhomes or single family or low density multifamily. So that is an example of how we've seen this play out in the past, and we know that the neighborhood is more supportive of density on the commercial corridor. That's just one example. But yes, we do use that feedback ongoing. I think it just kind of it builds kind of an itinerary in our mind that constantly comes forth at every different development project.
Yeah, quick question. How many projects do you currently have or have you done in coordination with Ohio City? Just curious.
I would say I think the number's around 15, current and past. There are a few projects that have wrapped up at this point, a few projects that haven't, kind of gone through construction and been completed. I would say active projects we're probably hovering around 9 or 10. So projects that are still in the permitting process are still going through the necessary boards and commissions, like landmarks and city planning. So.
I'm curious, since development is sort of crawling down Lorraine at a pretty fast clip, to what extent you coordinate with like Detroit, Shoreway, and Tremont in the other direction?
So, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I said, since development is spreading down Lorraine as an example at a fairly fast pace, to what extent are you coordinating with Detroit Shoreway on the one side and Tremont, I guess, on the other side?
So yeah, I think we're bound pretty clearly by our service area. So if a project's not in our service area, we can't ask them to do what is, our community process here. Each CDC kind of runs their community process differently. And again, the city, kind of respects that and lets us work out the community process ourselves. So if a project falls out of our boundaries, we can't really engage at that level.
Yeah, I will say, however, you'll hear from Ben in just a second. There are some great examples where collaboration between the CDCs is really driving where we're headed strategically. And so the Near West Land Trust will be, in just a moment, you'll hear about that. So, anything else?
How does the community know about co-urbanized?
That's another great question. So we've tried to, we posted on our website, we will post the different links, and the kind of centralized link right here is ohcfeedback.com. That'll take you to all of the different projects that are ongoing. So having one centralized page really helps in terms of conciseness. In the past, we've also done things like flyers. We've done yard signs where there's development projects. That can get pretty costly for a small CDC, but we have tried to do that on specific projects. One example for that is the mobility study, which was an OCI-led initiative, and we flyer the neighborhood. We put signs in coffee shops, and we also did different kind of ads at public places. So,
how do you distinguish between comments from people that aren't even in the neighborhood? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you see people that are posting saying, "Oh, there should be more density everywhere," and you don't know if they're a realtor or who they are.
Great question. So what we do is on each project we ask people to identify themselves first off. So everybody has to be registered with Co-Urbanize, so they have their name on there. It's publicly available. Secondly, we ask, what is your proximity to the project? So if I see that somebody says their proximity is Tremont, that's noted in the project, and that's noted in the comment section. I'll just say anecdotally, we have not seen a high level of names that I don't recognize. I'm looking at the comments every day, and I'm seeing a lot of names I'm familiar with. So that's kind of anecdotal, but I would say that it's being used by community members.
If your goal is to be neutral and you see a lot of comments from the community all heading one direction, do you advocate for that? I mean, how do you know when you've been successful as far as something that would benefit the community?
Yeah, so I think we're able to, we're able to talk with the development team and say, listen, we're hearing a lot of people say this. We're hearing a lot of people say they don't want balconies on Lorraine or something like that, for an example. What I mean by neutral is that we will not go to City Planning Commission or Landmarks Commission and say, Ohio City Inc. is supportive of this project or against this project. We don't do that. We do go to those commissions and say, we've heard a lot of community sentiment about the lack of this or the excess of that. So we are neutral in the fact that we do not take an official stance, but we do, again, tell developers and we tell the city what the community feedback has been, as best we can.
And I would add that's really a philosophical change from even from 10 years ago, when projects would come up and then the board would vote, and if a project got 9 votes yes and 8 votes no, we would go and say we are fully in support of this project. We've flipped that model now and we say we own the process. As an organization, we own the process and how people are going to follow it, but ultimately our feedback is limited to the feedback from the community. So the board doesn't take a stance, real estate doesn't take a stance. It's very much about providing the voice, the opportunity for the community itself to take those stances and for us to represent that back. Oh, all right, I think we're going to wrap up for this. Nate will be around after we're done.
Yes.
And Nate, do you want to introduce Ben?
I will. So next up we have Ben Trimble, our Chief Real Estate Officer. He's going to be talking about the Near West Land Trust.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ben Trimble. I'm Chief Real Estate Officer for Ohio City Incorporated, and I also have the honor of being the Acting Director for the Near West Community Land Trust. Just a little bit of background on how we got to this point. So we've been working actually with Tremont West Development Corporation for a couple of years on different strategies around affordability. As you talked about, as development races down Lorraine toward Duck Island, what are we doing, as a community to work with our surrounding CDCs? So we've been working with Tremont on a bunch of different strategies, sharing staff to try to get, certain expertise where it needs to be. And one of the things that we've both been experiencing is problems with housing affordability. As most people in this room know, and most people even nationally recognize across the board, housing prices have been escalating drastically over the last couple decades, while incomes have remained flat for most people. And so there's a real housing affordability crisis in this country. And we saw an appreciation of 1,000% over the last 20 years. I think our average home sale price in 2000 was like $35,000, and I actually just checked the average listing price for Ohio City today, as of June 2023, was $350,000 for median listing price. So it's a widespread problem, and we have a lot of folks that, that have traditionally been able to participate in this neighborhood that are now being priced out of it. So a couple years ago, we as I said, we were starting to collaborate for a way that would form in perpetuity to keep the housing more affordable. And so the buyer actually doesn't need to buy the land; they lease it from the land trust. So they pay less for the house; they pay a minimal lease amount to the land trust, and then the land trust retains permanent affordability of the land. That's important for a couple of reasons. So in a neighborhood like Ohio City, there's a lot of different affordable housing strategies that work in other places in the city. There's lease purchase models that are run by CHN, where someone buys in or rents for 15 years and then buys a house at a very low cost in the 16th year. And that works in a lot of markets. It stabilizes some neighborhoods in Ohio, in Cleveland. But in a place like Ohio City, where we have rapidly appreciating housing costs, it seemed like a very easy way to solve a problem very temporarily, and then in 16 years we have a house that will immediately be sold. It's a one-time, transfer of wealth for that owner. It's not a bad outcome, But for long-term affordability, when we have a very limited amount of land and resources, we thought we could use a better model. So we decided on the land trust. So land trust retains stewardship of the land. We retain the kind of subsidy through free land, through subsidy provided by governments, by foundation partners, et cetera, and we keep it in the house forever. And so the owner buys in to the home. They are restricted on who they can sell their home to. So there's like restrictions in everyone's land lease that says you can only sell to a buyer at this amount. So it controls the home ownership even after other homeowners sell. And they do actually gain appreciation or equity by both appreciation, which is housing prices going up, and then paying down their mortgage. So it's a shared equity model. Ours is 35% to the homeowner afterwards. So there will be a formula in each person's lease that'll calculate, the appreciation when a homeowner sells their home. That will calculate out how much they will share in that appreciation, and they will get a certain amount of that back. The rest of that stays in the trust, and that continues to buy down the cost of the home for the next person. So our activity to date, we were formed in 2020, and got all of our legal documents, all that kind of stuff together, and then we're promptly met with the pandemic. We actually were planning new construction homes. Unfortunately, a lot of pandemic-related supply chain issues, lumber costs were insane, all sorts of other production issues stalled us for probably about a year and a half. So we did take action to purchase 9 home ownership and rental units from Cleveland Housing Network. They were assets that were actually developed by the former Cuyahoga Land Trust, and actually Marge Mizek is here, who is the founder of that. And then we appointed an independent board that was representative of both Tremont and the Ohio City neighborhoods. Because this is a joint effort with Tremont, we actually have an intermediate board called Near West Partners that's actually staffed by members of both of our boards. Appoint the board members for now. And as we build homes, we're going to fill that board out with homeowners. Our board members have been chosen. They're both neighborhood residents, and they're also representative of organizations that represent low mod income, so low mod income folks. So Cleveland Housing Network, we have someone that works at Cleveland Housing Network, the Western Reserve Land Trust, and some other folks, May Dugan Center. So we have some other folks that are trying to represent the interests of low mod income homeowners. Here's that board structure for you guys, if you guys want to see sort of that fascinating. And so our next step is actually, our formation was actually to try to design infill new construction houses on City of Cleveland Land Bank lots. We do have one really great resource in our neighborhood is that we have City of Cleveland Land Bank lots that are now extremely valuable. And so a couple years ago, private developers would apply for houses. They would be granted a new construction home, and they would build a market rate house. The affordability problem by only building market rate housing. And so we've been working with them since to come up with this solution. So we did revise our model. We initially were we had a model whose construction costs worked for a pre-pandemic construction cost, so we have revised that since. And we are actually doing a mix of both market rate and affordable housing. So we are actually looking to build our first, we're hoping 12 units in the next year. So we actually have lots that are scattered through Detroit, Shoreway, Ohio City, and Tremont, many of which are actually owned by all the organizations or a builder partner. They will be scattered throughout the Near West Side. These are the first 2 that we've actually been softly marketing on West 44th Street. They're 2 about 1,050 square foot houses. They're small entry-level kind of houses for folks between work closely with and actually just formed a statewide association of land trusts. Work closely with and actually just formed a statewide association of land trusts that makes our case to so they do a lottery system actually to sort out have access to Ohio City and Tremont. Actually, Councilwoman Spencer froze her land bank lots a couple years ago and has provided that they were only used for affordable housing also. So our partnership with Detroit Shoreway, we think, would help us expand if we have a real demand for that, which we expect to have.
That's the way we built the model for how Near West partners and how the Near West Land Trust is set up is ultimately, if this goes as well as we hope it does, we could add 4 or 5 more CDCs to that board. And all of a sudden, we're looking at multiple neighborhoods across the city that we're working on the affordable housing as opposed to just here. So the hope is this is a overflow effect into some more housing.
Who's the builder for these houses?
It's
And-
Knez Homes.
Knez?
Yeah.
And do you know what the square footage of the houses are?
Well, they vary. We have several different models. We have different lot sizes also. So we have some smaller models that are 1,050. We have some larger models that are 1,350, so 3 bedrooms. So they wouldn't accommodate a large family, but certainly it could be a starter home for a young family, you know. And then our market rate ones are usually that larger size, which are about 1,400 square feet. So either way, we're trying to build a little bit smaller houses just to make them a little bit more affordable for folks. They're real efficient layouts. They have full, really nice height basements, so give a little bit of extra space for folks too.
Thanks.
Sure.
With the what you were discussing, are any maintenance or improvements totally at the discretion of the homeowner?
Yeah, they are. There's a reality that sometimes when houses transfer, maybe after an owner, you know, owning it for a long time, especially, you know, if they've been in it for a long time, they're on a fixed income or something, maybe they couldn't keep up with maintenance. So there is the ability for the land trust to maybe step in at sale, actually. So all of our land trust leases have a right of first refusal that say, you know, the homeowner basically would notify the land trust of their intent to sell. They would, you know, the land trust has usually 30 days to, you know, comply or say, hey, we'd like to buy this house. Maybe something that's been out there for 20, 25 years, you know, might need a little work. So that's somewhere where we could step in and help with that. But this is, the homeowner does own the home, so they're responsible for, you know, the everyday maintenance of it. We have included a small replacement reserve fee in our land trust lease, modeled after some other folks in the nation. For emergencies, we're finding as some of the land trust homes that we bought from Cleveland Housing Network are actually having real tax appraisal issues right now because the value of those homes have gone up so much that the actual tax burden is actually causing issues for homeowners. And so we actually had to release one of those houses from the trust because it was assessed at, you know, $350,000. The taxes themselves were more than the mortgage payment for the owner. So we're actually hoping that with a 15-year ramp up, we can, you know, be in a place to file tax appeals in year 16 when the tax abatement on these houses ends. And we're also looking at some creative ways of hoping to work with some other entities, hopefully to remove them from, you know, like a taxation situation later.
So with affordable housing programs and kind of earlier with your community like engagement and the positive, negative, neutral feedback you've been getting, is there a similar kind of like stigma attached to this style of affordable housing programs that other affordable housing programs have encountered in the past, like a Section 8 housing program? Like how does that kind of look to the community? Is this an embraced and encouraged and positive program, or is there some hurdles to kind of overcome for people to kind of take this in?
Well, I mean, I think that there are many, many opinions in this neighborhood. I've done this work here for probably 20 years, and I think there's probably a wide variety of opinions on affordable housing in this neighborhood. I think what our office and our board and Tremont's board honestly have heard far and wide is that affordability is a problem in our neighborhoods. And we have neighborhoods which have changed rapidly. And a lot of that changes for the good. I mean, there are some really great things about our neighborhood. There are you know, new housing units, new neighbors, that's wonderful. But it has caused a lack of diversity, both in incomes and many other things. And so I feel like we used to actually hear a lot of complaints about any time an affordable housing project was proposed in this neighborhood. You still get some of that, but I feel like actually the widespread opinion that we hear from folks is that affordable housing is a real problem. We should be doing everything we can to help.
And the real advantage of this model is you shouldn't from the street level be able to tell, right? We're building houses that look like they fit. We're building houses that are appropriate for the neighborhood, and we're building them in a way that they're going to last for a long time. And unless you really know the politics of that particular piece of land, you're never going to know. As opposed to building 100 in one block, we're going to space them out. That map is a great job of showing the chicken pox around the west side of where we're actually going to be.
So to build on that, is there any effort to work with existing homes and existing landmarks and preserving their affordability and attainability throughout the community, or is most of your focus on building a new?
Most of our focus is on building new. We purchased a historic building actually as part of the Cuyahoga Land Trust that I just talked about. We bought. It's a 4-unit building that actually our organization sold to the former land trust, and the other land trust rehabbed it, and we bought it back 10 years later, which is a really fun circle of life here. And so I think we're opportunistic wherever we can. And the reality is, honestly, we don't have ready access to a lot of capital to go buy vacant houses on the market. And that's something we can look at. We have taken, we've arranged, deals where we swapped a couple land bank lots actually for existing houses that are being rehabbed and then transferred to us. So that's one way we've, worked with in the past. We have a couple that are actually on Bailey that are going to be transferred to us later this year. And that makes sense, sometimes, the problem is, we're kind of outracing private capital in the market for rehab houses, and that's really difficult, honestly. We just don't have the means to keep up with folks sometimes.
Yeah, this sounds like a wonderful program, and it looks like it's yielding some amazing results. I just want to know, is it flexible enough to look at other structures for housing? In other words, it seems like this is geared toward more traditional family setups, but are we talking about maybe cooperative housing where all the members under the one roof may not be relatives, and other models that some other cities and places are looking at that are facing the same kind of challenges in affordable housing? Is the model currently flexible enough for maybe in the future for us to look at some of these options?
I think it is. I'm really focused on trying to just build our first houses, to be honest, Brian. I thank you for the question. I love to geek out on real estate stuff, so I'd love to look at that. We've talked a lot. We have some, especially multiple lots that are together, so getting a little more density with some smaller infill townhome stuff like that. That would probably, hopefully, maybe buy the cost down a little bit more. So we've certainly talked about that, and that's something we're probably planning to look to. The co-op model, I know some other folks are doing it. I haven't wrapped my brain around it yet. I know that the Columbus Land Trust is looking at condo models, so I'm going to try to learn everything I can from them, actually. We think that it would be good, a condo model, like flats, for instance, on smaller infill lots would be great for, seniors that are aging out of other housing, stuff like that. So I think that we'll probably look at those models, but right now I just want to build 12 houses.
All right, maybe one or two more questions. Anyone else?
Ms. Howard?
Yeah, with the land trust, would that be cheaper mortgage on some that, like you say, affordable housing?
Yeah. So the idea is you buy the cost of the house down with the free land, as well as some money from the city to help buy the cost of the construction down. And then we'll sell some of these at market rate, and we'll use the proceeds from that to buy it down a little further. So instead of paying, $325,000 for a new house, somebody will pay like $169 or $179. That's what our model is like right now. So. Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, Ben will be here after. I'll be here after. We're glad to answer questions on how we got to this spot. So we have one last thing, and we will get you out of here by 7 o'clock, as promised. So our friends back there in the back from Proof, Dave Ferranti. Have a round of applause for dinner. I mean, they're looking to open at 41st and Lorraine. So wanted to do a presentation about their plans.
Everyone hear me okay? All right. So hello, my name is David Ferrante. I'm the owner of Proof Barbecue, Craft Barbecue and more. Up here on the stage with me is my management leadership team, Brandon Lassiter, who cooked for you this evening, our chef. Jay Casey, who will be our general manager. I'm sorry, I should have let him applaud longer. I cut him off soon. Jay Casey, who will be our general manager and run the day-to-day operations of the operation. Go ahead and click it. So I very much appreciate Ohio City organizing this, letting us come up talk. Appreciate your time. I know it's getting late and you're probably getting a little tired, but we want to introduce ourselves to you in the neighborhood so you have an idea who we are and what we're about. And that being the case, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about who we are. So again, my name is David Ferrante, and I also own Visible Voice Books in Tremont. And it's kind of where the story started, where I own the building down at 2258 Professor, right across the street from Dante's. My cousin, Mike Griffin, owns Crust Pizza. So he's on the first floor, bookstore's on the second floor, and we had a basement. And we had a great concept about, hey, let's put a barbecue place in the basement. My cousin's a very strong cook, a lot of good concepts. Our timing was off. We literally opened like a week before DeWine shut everything down because of COVID. They had a good recipe, good menu, good staff, but we just could not keep it going. And as time went on, we tried to open and close. We opened and closed once or twice during COVID, and finally, we just got to the point where we just couldn't get it going. However, in that time period, I found Brandon, and I had been friends with Jay for years, and he'd hear me commiserate for years about how difficult this thing was going to go. But I loved the concept. I liked what we were doing, and we figured we wanted to try it one more time. And then Nick's Diner became available, and I decided to buy Nick's, and that's when we came to the conclusion about putting all this together and moving Proof there. So we've been hoping to be open 2 or 3 different times here, and we're still working through the construction permits. We should have those in the next week or two, and construction's going to start. It's probably a 3 or 4 month build out, and we hope to be open by the 4th quarter. And one thing about these guys that I want to point out here is we take our responsibilities to the neighborhood very, very seriously. So with Visible Voice Books, I've actually had a liquor license since 2010. Never had any problems, never had a violation, never had any situations pop up. We want to fit into the neighborhood we're working with. We want to see what we can bring to the table to enhance where we're at, and that's what we're about here. So that being the case, this management group here has about 70, probably 90 years of experience. 90 years of experience between the 3 of us in the food industry and the business world. So I'd like to introduce the staff and let them talk a little about themselves. Brandon will go over the food a little bit about the menu, and Jake can talk a little about his background and how he plans on running things. So ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, Jay Casey again.
Guys, thank you. Very nice to meet you. I'm Jay Casey. I've worked at Stone Mat. I've worked at Pier W. I've worked at Sam and Dave's. I've worked downtown. I've worked all over the city. I'm from Lakewood, actually. I used to go to the Hot Dog Inn when I was a kid, actually, so that's how I really know the area that we're about to go into. We're going to be open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. till 10, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 o'clock. Friday and Saturday. So we're going to keep the kitchen open later so you guys have a place to go that serves food later than the places that we have currently around us. So that was our plan. The patio is going to be kicked back about 10 to 12 feet to seat about 50 people on the patio, 50 people inside, maybe 55 people inside. We're very wary of patio noise. We had a meeting with our block club a few weeks ago. We talked about that as well. So we're going to be very mindful of the patio noise being open. But when the sun's still up at 9:15 in July and you want to go sit on the patio and enjoy something, we figured we should have the patio open later instead of closing earlier. So that's our plan for the opening hours. We'll extend out from barbecue to more salads and some other things that we didn't really offer down in Tremont. And Brandon here got second place in Scene Magazine's Best of Cleveland Barbecue last year, and he plans on becoming number one as soon as possible. So, but I have cards back there, and we have these packets back there. If you have any questions, just pick them up. You can always shoot me a text or call me. But let me talk to Brandon and have Brandon talk about the food right now. Brandon, take it away.
We'll go back to those pictures, don't worry. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. I hope you guys all enjoyed all the food we had for you. If you are sleepy, make sure you don't drive home, because that is some heavy food. Don't barbecue and drive, I always say. Hey, he's got jokes. Oh, right there's fine. So, we're barbecue. We are aware there's another barbecue spot right down, the road from us. We're going to expand more from our barbecue leanings. I have a lot of experience. I've worked various hotels around the country. I've worked at the Ritz-Carlton in West Palm Beach, the Greenbrier, West Virginia. I was the chef de cuisine at the 9 Hotel when we first opened for 3 years. I was the chef de cuisine at the Renaissance Hotel downtown for a couple more years. So this is kind of like my first kind of role in a small independent realm, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. I got hired onto Proof back in November of 2020 after being laid off, during the pandemic, like I'm sure a lot of us were. I've been there ever since. My main goal with the food is to kind of take what Nick's, not what Nick's was doing, but take their vibe, take the diner, take that old school American feel, and kind of bring it and kind of mix it with the barbecue that we're doing. So we're going to offer a lot of, we're not kind of going out of the box or, offer anything crazy. We just want good, tasting food that's fun and exciting for people. We want people to be excited to come out and try something new every time. And we're going to be trying to focus on a lot of local vendors, local ingredients, local desserts, stuff like that as well. And then everything we make in-house is going to be pretty much made from scratch. Everything you had tonight, the sauces, mac and cheese, everything. I mean, I didn't make the pasta. I'm not that crazy. But everything was made from scratch, and that's kind of the motto we kind of follow. Other than that, I mean, we're just excited to get in the neighborhood. I'm really excited because you can actually see our restaurant from the street now, which we really couldn't from Tremont. Ohio City is a really fun area, and I like the area that we're in of Ohio City. It's not the crazy part. It's a nice little homier community part, which I really enjoy. Other than that, yeah, we've got some renderings that we've have. Yeah, we can have Dave.
So I just want to give a shout out. We have a really good architect named Lucas Stibe. He's with AODK architecture firm in Lakewood, and he's worked with us over the last year or so to kind of, or last 6 months or so, to hone the concepts. And these aren't exact what the place is going to look like, but it's going to be fairly close to it. Some of the images are a little dark, but we just want to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Which way? So that's what this is what the front should look. Oh, yeah, that's the front during the day, evening. Kind of what it's going to look similar to this as you come in, or from the back looking forward. Back area, patio, which is going to be pretty close to this, and again the hours. So that's pretty much a good idea of what we're working with here. Any?
Don't give too much away right now.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Questions? For Proof.
Any cooking questions?
Ooh, now you're talking.
Probably midway through the fourth quarter, because we should start construction next couple of weeks. So they're asking about our what, as far as we're going to serve as far as alcohol.
We'll have a full-service bar. We'll have 4 taps, and we'll have a completely full-service bar. Pretty much what we had down in Tremont, we'll bring over. We'll change a few things up. We'll probably knock a couple bourbons off because down there we were focused mostly on bourbon. But we'll have a full bar. And then Sundays, we're going to eventually open on Sundays. Right now we're working on our Sunday liquor license as well. Yes, and that will be on the ballot in November. So please vote for it. So, but yeah, we'll have a full bar, and we will have one guy who's going to come in and be an oyster shucker for us, actually. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yes. I've also found that it just made my inner fat kid very happy. Seoul fried chicken, Korean fried chicken. Chef, can you tell those who have not had the pleasure of having that what makes that a little different than the average everyday fried chicken?
One of the things is I'm from the South, so for me, I like comfort food. I grew up eating soul food a lot. You know, it's what I've lived on, and I'm trying to kind of bring a lot of those flavors, and that's kind of a lot of my cuisine and cooking is bringing those flavors and kind of mixing them in more of a modern take. You know, that way you kind of get that homey taste and feel, but you get a nice modern presentation for everything without being, you know, crazy molecular out of the box kind of stuff. So, and then to piggyback on that bar question from earlier, our big focus, we're not going to be like heavy focused on the bar. Like we're not going to be pushing ourselves like a B&G's or anything that we're going to be right next door to. We're going to have very simple cocktails. You know, we are going to focus pretty good on local beers as well too. So, so we only have 4 taps, so we're not looking to like have the place be filled with inebriated people all day. You know, our main focus is going to be on the food with a little bit of a background of the having some alcohol. You know, you want to have a beer or something when you eat some barbecue and sandwich. So, any other questions?
No.
But are the bathrooms handicap accessible?
Unfortunately, the building's grandfathered. The bathrooms were always originally in the basement, and to make enough room to actually operate the facility, we had to keep the bathrooms in the basement.
Any final questions? Gentlemen, thanks again for dinner. Thanks for coming and presenting. We appreciate it. They will be around back here at the table if you have any additional questions. Anything else, Katie, before we wrap up? Seeing none. Next month, stay tuned. But we will have a meeting. So great. Thanks for coming out tonight. Happy to answer questions if you have any, and we'll see you next month. Oh, yeah. And if you'd like to take any food with you, our friends from Proof have said take food with you. So there's plates back there. Grab some, take a plate home.